The Harley-Davidson engines rumbled like thunder outside a notorious biker bar on the outskirts of Prague, all steel and chrome. Red and blue shadows from neon beer signs fell across weathered faces and leather jackets adorned with patches that told stories of rebellion. Cigarette smoke, motor oil, and the kind of tension that comes when men gather to forget the outside world thickened the air. Heavy metal music pounded from speakers that had seen better decades, mixing with the clink of beer bottles and rough laughter. This was no place for diplomats or politicians. It was a sanctuary for outcasts who lived by their own code. The bartender, a mountain of a man named Klaus, wiped glasses with mechanical precision, his eyes constantly scanning for trouble. Everyone here knew the rules. Respect was earned with fists, not words. The atmosphere shifted immediately like a stone dropped in still water when Ibrahim Traoré stepped through the heavy wooden door. He wore a simple white button-down shirt and dark slacks, diplomatic attire that looked painfully out of place among the leather and denim. His security detail had insisted on staying outside, respecting his request for a moment of solitude during this unexpected stop. The young Burkina Faso leader's flight had been delayed, and he'd slipped away from his handlers, drawn by curiosity to this slice of authentic European working-class culture. His dark eyes swept the room with the same calculating intensity he used in military briefings back home. Several bikers turned to stare, conversations dying mid-sentence as they tried to process this unexpected visitor. The contrast was striking. Africa's youngest revolutionary leader standing among Europe's forgotten rebels. Well, what do we have here? Growled Marcus, the local chapter president, his massive frame rising from a corner booth. His leather vest displayed patches from motorcycle clubs across 3 continents, each one representing a story of brotherhood forged in chrome and gasoline. The other bikers shifted in their seats, sensing the change in energy that always preceded either violence or revelation. Marcus had served 3 tours in Afghanistan before finding solace in the open road and the brotherhood of steel horses. His weathered hands bore scars from both war and countless bar fights, and his pale blue eyes held the weariness of a man who'd seen too much. He studied Ibrahim with the practiced gaze of someone who'd learned to read danger in foreign lands. Something about this stranger felt different, not threatening, but undeniably powerful. The jukebox chose that moment to fall silent between songs, amplifying the sound of Ibrahim's measured footsteps on the worn wooden floor. He approached the bar with the same steady confidence he'd shown when addressing the United Nations, his posture straight, but not aggressive. Klaus automatically reached for a beer, then hesitated, unsure what this unusual customer might want to drink. The silence stretched like a taut wire, pregnant with possibility and uncertainty. Ibrahim's lips curved into a slight smile. He'd faced down military coups and international sanctions, but somehow this felt more authentic than any diplomatic reception. The bikers watched him with growing curiosity, their initial hostility tempered by intrigue at his fearless demeanor. This was exactly the kind of genuine human connection he'd been seeking, far from the scripted world of international politics. "You lost, boy." Marcus's voice cut through the smoky air like a rusty blade, his tone carrying decades of territorial instinct. The other bikers began to circle closer, their heavy boots creating a rhythmic symphony on the creaking floorboards. Ibrahim could feel their eyes studying every detail of his appearance. The crisp shirt, the diplomatic watch, the way he carried himself with quiet authority. These men had spent their lives being dismissed by society's elite, pushed aside by politicians and bureaucrats who never bothered to understand their world. Now, one of those same politicians had walked directly into their sanctuary, uninvited and seemingly unaware of the danger. The leather-clad brotherhood exchanged knowing glances, their unspoken communication honed by years of riding together through storms and sunshine. Marcus cracked his knuckles, a sound that echoed like gunshots in the tense atmosphere. Ibrahim raised his hands in a gesture of peace, his voice calm and measured despite the growing hostility surrounding him. "I'm just a traveler looking for an honest drink among honest people," he replied in English, his slight accent revealing his African origins. The admission sent a ripple of surprise through the crowd. Most foreign diplomats avoided places like this, preferring sanitized hotel bars and exclusive clubs. Big Jim, a Vietnam veteran with arms like tree trunks, snorted with derision and took a long pull from his beer bottle. "Honest people," he laughed bitterly. "You think we're some kind of tourist attraction for your fancy foreign friends?" The other bikers murmured their agreement, their suspicion growing with each passing second. Ibrahim's security training told him to leave immediately, but something deeper, a soldier's instinct, urged him to stand his ground. Klaus, the bartender, watched the scene unfold with the practiced eye of a man who'd seen countless confrontations escalate from words to violence. He'd served everyone from CEOs slumming it to undercover cops. But this stranger was different. There was steel beneath his diplomatic exterior. The younger bikers were getting restless, their hands unconsciously moving to the chains hanging from their belts, while the older members held back, sensing something they couldn't quite identify. "We don't serve politicians here," growled Snake, a scarred veteran whose real name had been forgotten years ago. His comment drew nods of approval from the crowd, their collective resentment building like pressure in a steam engine. Ibrahim's jaw tightened slightly, but his composure never wavered, even as the circle of leather and metal continued to close around him. The air grew thick with the kind of tension that preceded either breakthrough or bloodshed. The confrontation reached its tipping point when someone in the back shouted, "Send him back where he came from." The words hit Ibrahim like a physical blow, not because they were unexpected, but because they echoed the same dismissive attitudes he'd fought against his entire life. Marcus stepped closer, his massive frame casting a shadow over the African leader while the crowd began to press in from all sides. "You hear that?" Marcus said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Maybe it's time you found a different bar." The smell of leather, motor oil, and barely contained violence filled Ibrahim's nostrils as he realized this situation was about to spiral beyond diplomatic solutions. His military instincts kicked in, reading the room's dynamics and calculating his options with the cold precision of a battlefield commander. The next few moments would determine whether this encounter ended in understanding or chaos, and Ibrahim Traoré had never been one to back down from a fight. Marcus took another step forward, his massive fist clenching as the crowd's energy reached a boiling point. "I asked you nicely once, foreign boy," he snarled, his breath reeking of whiskey and years of accumulated anger. The other bikers formed a tight circle now, their faces masks of hostility and territorial rage that had been building since Ibrahim first walked through their door. Big Jim cracked his knuckles while Snake fingered the heavy chain hanging from his belt, both men waiting for Marcus to give the signal. The younger bikers bounced on their feet like caged animals, their adrenaline surging as they sensed violence approaching. Klaus continued polishing glasses behind the bar, but his hand moved closer to the baseball bat he kept hidden beneath the counter. The smell of sweat, leather, and impending violence filled the smoky air like incense in a church of brutality. Ibrahim's military training kicked in as he assessed the tactical situation with cold precision, counting exits and identifying potential weapons within reach. His diplomatic instincts screamed at him to defuse the situation with words, but his soldier's heart recognized that these men would only respect strength. "I didn't come here to fight," Ibrahim said quietly, his voice carrying the authority of a man who'd commanded armies before his 30th birthday. His hands remained visible but ready, his weight balanced on the balls of his feet in a stance that spoke of countless hours of combat training. The bikers might see him as just another politician, but Ibrahim Traoré had earned his leadership through blood and bullets in the harsh landscape of West Africa. Marcus laughed mockingly, mistaking Ibrahim's calm demeanor for weakness rather than the deadly composure of a seasoned warrior. The tension stretched like a wire about to snap, with both sides waiting for someone to make the first move. "You're either brave or stupid coming in here dressed like that," Marcus growled, his massive hand shooting out to grab Ibrahim's shirt collar. The African leader's reflexes, honed by years of military service and assassination attempts, kicked in with lightning speed. Ibrahim's left hand deflected Marcus's grip while his right drove upward in a precise strike toward the biker's solar plexus. But Marcus was faster than his bulk suggested, twisting away from the blow and using his momentum to slam Ibrahim backward against the bar. The impact sent beer bottles crashing to the floor, their glass fragments catching the neon light like scattered diamonds. The crowd roared its approval as the two men grappled, neither giving ground in this unexpected test of wills. Klaus shouted for calm, but his voice was lost in the chaos as chairs scraped against wood and leather-clad figures pressed closer to witness the confrontation. The fight escalated quickly as both men realized they faced a worthy opponent. Their initial clash revealing mutual respect beneath the violence. Marcus' heavy fist whistled past Ibrahim's ducking head, smashing into the mirror behind the bar with explosive force. Glass rained down like crystalline snow as Ibrahim countered with an elbow strike that Marcus barely managed to block. Their struggle sent them crashing into tables and chairs, appending ashtrays and beer mugs in their wake. The other bikers cheered and shouted encouragement, their bloodlust temporarily overriding their desire to join the fray. In that moment of pure physical confrontation, social barriers dissolved. There was only strength against strength, will against will. The bar had become an arena where two warriors tested each other's mettle, neither seeking to destroy, but both refusing to yield. The two men crashed into another table, sending ashtrays and empty bottles flying across the scarred wooden floor. Marcus wrapped his massive arms around Ibrahim's torso, attempting to use his superior weight to pin the younger man against the wall. But Ibrahim's combat training kicked in with muscle memory born from countless street fights in Ouagadougou's roughest neighborhoods. He twisted sharply to the right, breaking Marcus's grip and spinning away from the crushing embrace that could have ended the fight. The biker's calloused fingers caught the fabric of Ibrahim's white dress shirt as he pulled free. The sound of tearing cotton cut through the bar's chaos like a gunshot, followed by a moment of stunned silence. Marcus stumbled backward, clutching a torn piece of expensive fabric in his weathered hand. Ibrahim felt the cool air hit his exposed chest as his shirt split completely down the middle, the ruined garment hanging in tatters from his shoulders. The diplomatic uniform that had marked him as an outsider now lay in ruins, revealing the man beneath the political facade. His chest rose and fell with controlled breathing, sweat glistening on dark skin that bore the lean muscle definition of a soldier who'd never stopped training. The bikers' jeers and catcalls died in their throats as they caught sight of something unexpected on Ibrahim's left shoulder. Marcus dropped the torn fabric, his aggressive stance faltering as his eyes locked onto the intricate design etched into the African leader's skin. The bar's neon signs cast shifting shadows across Ibrahim's torso, illuminating and obscuring the mysterious marking. Even Snake and Big Jim pressed closer, their hostility temporarily forgotten in the face of something they hadn't expected to see. The tattoo stretched across Ibrahim's left shoulder and upper chest, its bold lines and geometric patterns unlike anything the bikers had encountered before. It wasn't the crude prison work or amateur designs they were accustomed to seeing in their world of needles and ink. This was something deeper, more significant. Traditional African scarification translated into modern tattoo artistry with stunning precision and cultural authenticity. The design incorporated elements that spoke of heritage, struggle, and unbreakable bonds forged in the fires of revolution. Intricate patterns wove together symbols of resistance, unity, and the eternal struggle for freedom that had defined generations of African warriors.